we're waiting for what the US will do vis-a-vis Iran, with Iran-backed proxies, which include the Houthis, by the way, and Hezbollah and Hamas, having killed US soldiers based in Jordan, and the US looking to try and re-establish some kind of deterrence without going so far that it actually drags us into a major Middle East war. We are walking multiple tightropes all at once. And at least in terms of the Red Sea and Suez Canal, I fear that we're already wobbling much more than people realize.
On that Red Sea shipping route issue, it's obviously pushing up shipping costs already. Could we be seeing a new round of supply chain driven inflation take hold in the global economy?
Well, that's the risk. We're already certainly seeing those costs push up quite aggressively. Now, on the other side, you can say, and this is absolutely true, the demand now is not as strong as it was a few years ago when we last had that big shock, which is a positive in a way. And on the other hand, we have a lot more supply of container ships. So they can take up some of that extra capacity, which we will now need if we can't go around Suez. If we have to have a much, much longer journey time, you need more ships to get everything to you on time. So we just about had that capacity. But if we get more problems in Africa, if more groups or actors, shall we say, can see that this strategy works to destabilize the global economy, and we get it rolled out in other locations, which we could, and or we get knock-on second, third order effects at ports in Africa, which we could, and or any other related problems arise, and at the same time we get the large effective cartels which control ocean carrying, like moving stuff around by ship, saying, well, we're going to get rid of some of our excess capacity because some of it doesn't meet environmental standards. So now's a good time to get rid of those ships. And in doing so, let's keep the supply-demand balance quite tight, which is good for our profits. Were they to, try and hit two birds with one stone like that, yeah, you could see a serious problem. And we're already seeing it in things like diesel, for example, where we don't have the spare capacity to move that product all the way around Africa to get up to Europe rather than through Suez. And we are seeing prices move higher. So it's not a done deal, but we are moving towards a supply shock that's an echo, at least, of what we saw a few years ago.
So if trade's gone back 150 years and we're moving toward a supply shock, how long would we have if this situation continues before we start to feel those price rises?
No one knows precisely, but if things keep going the way they're going now, potentially within months, you'll start to see it. Now, again, the upside, given some of the other factors that I just suggested, which is like interest rates are higher now, demand is lower, you can say it won't look like it did last time. And I think that's true. But the counterbalance, as I keep putting it to people, is most of the financial markets is getting very excited, including in Australia, about the prospect of when interest rates will come down again, because obviously that ties into mortgages and housing and people's wallets and pockets. How can you think about reducing interest rates, which is a deliberately stimulative policy trying to push up demand, which is what it would try and do, in the face of a supply shock? That wouldn't be the smartest thing to do. So even if it doesn't mean that rates have to go any higher than this, it certainly suggests they can't come down as fast as many people have been hoping, because they don't want to see these problems emerging in a part of the globe that, frankly, up until recently, most people didn't even look at.
So the Red Sea could keep a floor under interest rates?
Absolutely. Well, the Red Sea could be parted between those who are expecting a happy ending for the housing market and those who aren't. That could be the dividing line.
As you say, there are a number of tightropes being walked. One of them is what Washington is calling an Iran-backed militia attack on US soldiers in Jordan. 3 were killed as a result of a drone strike. Washington says it's decided how it's going to respond. We don't know the outcome of that yet. Would you have expected stronger moves in oil markets as a result?
No, and purely for one reason. That is, if you look at the track record of this particular White House, it has been nothing but appeasement of Iran. Now, I'm not getting into the politics of whether that's a good or a bad idea. That's just an objective fact. And even if you are seeing a change in stance now, belatedly, after a series of attacks and only now 3 deaths, triggering this response, it would be really quite unusual to expect them to, A, do a complete 180 to saying Iran is now our enemy rather than someone we're trying to make friends with, and failing, by the way, and from the Iranian side. And B, to then turn around and say we're prepared to do that in an election year when we've just got over an inflation problem, when we know that if we really go all in on Iran, we won't just be in a war for the 2024 election, we'll probably be in a war in the 2028 election as well. So what I expect, and the market is pricing for, is that we will get a lot of airstrikes and a lot of explosions, and none of them will be within Iranian territory, and most of them will be against Iranian proxies, who, from the Iranian point of view, are completely disposable. That's not a problem. Fine, hit them, just don't hit us. So it will be more kind of, I hate to say it because people are probably going to die, so I'm not trying to belittle that at all. But from a geostrategic perspective, it's going to be more theater than actual action, and it certainly is unlikely to hit the oil infrastructure, which is where the market would react.
If markets aren't going to focus too much attention on the geopolitics in the Middle East at the moment, what geopolitical issues should investors be looking at as we head well into 2024?
Well, I think the big thing that the market will start to focus on, and it's technically geopolitics, but at the national level, which is the number of key elections we have going on all around the world. We have got a huge chunk of mankind that's going to be voting this year. We've seen some elections already and some interesting results already. Many, many more to come. And frankly, the majority of them, if they go either one way or the other, could really, really shake the box in terms of what the policy framework looks like going forward. The playing field in which markets operate. And of course, in some instances, it's even potentially war or peace. So yeah, we do need to pay attention to those. And I think the markets have a very poor record of predicting these things. So it'll have to be a reaction function. And we'll find out, after the votes are counted, what the world then looks like.
Michael Every, thank you for your insights.
Thank you.